to the Vitalmoments podcast. My name is David, and man, it's good to be back.
It has been a long time since you've been
A
here.
hot minute.
Yeah.
It's been a real hot minute.
I mean, you can tell you haven't done it in a while because you said good morning.
That's so true. I'm thinking about just because it's morning time for me, but usually we're like, don't say good morning because people could be listening at any time.
Yeah.
So take two. Welcome back to the Vitalmoments podcast.
There you go. That is perfect.
No, it is good to be back. You and Amy and the team have been doing such a great job. I've been able to listen from afar. And if you don't know, I was battling a concussion.
Yeah, like how you doing? Tell everybody how you're doing. Yeah, because I get asked all the time, how's David? I'm like, blah, blah, blah.
No, I'm feeling really good. About a week ago, it really started clicking. Like the fogginess was gone. The symptoms started to disappear and starting to feel like myself a little bit more, which is good.
Yeah. Question is, do you feel smarter?
No.
Okay. That's what we were praying for, a miracle.
A miracle.
It's like, come back smarter. It'd be great.
Yeah. Someone said on the team, they're like, hopefully this actually knocks some sense into you.
I know. Yeah.
And I was like, maybe.
Was that the rabbi who said that?
Yeah, David said that.
David.
It was pretty
David
funny.
Campbell.
So, but it is good to be back.
Yeah.
It's been awesome to watch the Vitalmoments podcast. Like,
shout out to Amy.
Yeah.
Like Amy had stepped up and she has done a wonderful job.
Yeah.
Really proud of her.
She definitely did.
Yep.
But I guess we keep pressing on, right?
We do. I mean, it's David, our commitment to do this Vitalmoments podcast it was strategically for our connect groups, right? The people that couldn't be at a Sunday morning gathering and to be able to catch up on the discussion and sometimes go a little bit farther, a little bit deeper. And but it's been expanding beyond that, which is really nice and exciting.
It really has.
And now that you're back, which is good because we've had some plans to expand Vitalmoments.
Yeah, we got some dreams. We got some dreams and hopes for this sucker
so now we can get at it. So
grow into more. But we're in a series right now, Exodus to Jesus, or Exodus and Jesus.
Yeah.
Plowing through this beautiful Old Testament story, which really represents actually the overarching theme of God continues to deliver his people. And ultimately the answer is, hey, guess what? There's this guy named Jesus who paid it all to deliver us. But
it's interesting, just to cut you off. I had someone was in Poplar Hill yesterday, a new couple, been in our church world for a long time. And it was fun. I got a beautiful text from him saying, I don't think I've heard the connection to Jesus made so clearly.
Well, it's wild to me though, right? Like you think about people, we all have different understandings around faith, the Bible, right? You got so many views on it, and you got followers of Jesus that, like you said it was Jacqueline in our service in Exeter. She said, this series has really helped me understand that these aren't just stories. These are life transformational stories.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really starting to percolate a lot, is to see that people, like, whether they're new to faith or they've been walking for a long time, that this is life transformation.
Yeah.
This is supposed to change your life completely.
Yeah.
It's not just like a better life. It's actually the best life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we looked at the last plague yesterday, right?
Yeah.
But you jumped in hot and heavy, but with so much compassion and a beautiful level of gentleness, talking around sin.
Yeah. And
kind of explain to us why you didn't jump around it. You plowed right through it. You're like, sin is not like oh God, like this is my bad.
Yeah. Oops, my bad.
Oopsie. No, it's this is something that can separate me from you.
Yeah.
Right. So how did you handle it with so much gentleness?
Well, yeah, you and I talk about communication quite a bit, and with our other teaching team members too. I believe it's the tone. The tone is just as important as the truth in which you teach. And it's funny because I started off the talk, going, the sin thing, and I realized, even doing this live in Poplar Hill, I realized, like, oh boy, we're starting off hot and heavy. But I knew that I was looping back to it.
Yes.
Further into the conversation. So it was almost a setup.
Yeah.
And then to bring it back and around near the end of the conversation was a critical piece for me. And it's like at the beginning of a talk, you try to use a quote unquote hook. It could be a story, it could be illustration, it could be something. What we've been doing, strategically changing that idea of the hook with this particular series, is we're just diving in. Yeah. And not trying to waste time. And then looping, and then making sure that it has a purpose and bringing it back and around, which has been really exciting. I mean, I've had the privilege of teaching the vast majority of this series so far, and then the teaching team's going to be, I got some time off coming up, so the teaching team is going to be stepping in, and I believe the foundation is there for them, for you guys to continue that.
Because what I think what we need to realize is in church world, from my experience, let me talk from my experience. You can talk about sin and dance around it, or you can not talk about it at all and just say, hey, Jesus loves you. Just give your life to him. Everything changes.
Right.
Right. But what I think what we need to talk about a little bit more here is the importance of talking about sin and realizing our human nature is broken.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, David, what you were trying to lead me to, and I got a bit distracted.
That's okay.
I think you were leading me to the atonement factor that we talked about, right? Yeah. So if we view sin as, oops, my bad, I'll do better next time, then we could view God by saying, well, why didn't you just say, I forgive you, and we move on? Yeah. The 10th plague in Egypt was the firstborn of the home. Well, the firstborn of everything in Egypt would die if they were not covered by the blood of the lamb. And what we were trying to do with the atonement discussion was the reality of the depth of sin. In order for something to be made new, there has to be death. Yeah. And there's life in the blood. We looked at Leviticus 17, verse 11, which is the reality of the lifeblood, right? And so the depth of sin is known by the depth of what it takes for sin to be forgiven, to be covered, to be cleansed. And we can't take it lightly, right? No. And I think what was happening for me in the conversation was, culturally, we've watered it down. It was a funny moment, second service. You would have laughed, Dave. I was coughing in the second service. Like, my throat was off and I started coughing. I had to get some water. And literally I said, in our culture, we've watered down sin. And I took a sip of my water. and it was unintentional, but people started laughing.
Oh, that's too good.
And I mean, you couldn't have timed it, but I wasn't thinking about it from that perspective. I think Josh, our producer, I don't know if he was in the room at that moment when that happened, but we water it down. But I mean, we have to look at sin as it's putrid in God's eyes. And so the depth of the reality of the atonement factor and the sacrifice.
And if you think about this, and you went to it in your talk, you brought it back to the 9th plague, right?
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
The 9th plague, the darkness they felt it, the separation.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Right? Like, it's like, I love the Bible because it is so intentional. Every word means something.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you're listening to this and you're like, man, I don't understand my Bible, get a study Bible. So as you're reading, you can get the little excerpts that are like helping you understand the depth of it in that moment. Yeah. And continue to move forward in it so it doesn't trip you up too much. But to bring it back to the 9th plague, felt the darkness, but then you also brought in the justice and mercy, how they're not two separate entities. They're actually something interwoven together. Right. I was just amazed by like God's intentionality of everything that he does is for the glorification of him, but also for his people to know him.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's two things you're talking about there. I think there's two separate things. I mean, the justice and mercy is what we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks. Like, the justice of God was on display dealing with Pharaoh, which is a picture of evil in the Garden of Eden. But we also, within that, experience the mercy of God. Now, what you're talking about with 9 and 10 is a bit of a different thing, where the darkness came over the land and there was isolation, separation. They felt the darkness, and then the reality of death, which came in number 10, and the cry in Egypt. And this, I mean, we got to tip our hat to Amy on this. Amy was the one that did some reflecting on this and shared it with us. Was the desperation, and the cry in Egypt is the desperation of the darkness in which we find ourselves in, the death in which they experience in the land of Egypt, and the desperate, horrific cry. Can you imagine waking up and your firstborn is gone? Like, you're our firstborn. You know, you could imagine that horrific sound that cries out from Egypt in every home. That one home was missed. And so that cry of death, and she was able to, in her own heart, and kind of just reflecting, take it to the reality of the eternal darkness and death, separation from God, and that place of isolation, which would be the sound of eternity apart from God. And we're not going to get into hell in the sense of different parts of different definitions of hell. We're not going to do that now.
Oh, come on.
No.
I'm just kidding. You did in your video message say one word that I was like, okay, you kind of gave maybe.
What's that?
You said the eternal separation.
Yeah, the eternal separation, right?
Yeah.
And that sound, and which Jesus draws out in Matthew 17, right?
Yeah,
which is that the physical dump, that place that he was referring to, the gnashing of teeth, the eternal fire, because that place was there's always smoke rising up, and the sound of gnashing teeth and misery and so on. But that great cry in Egypt line really is something to think about, ponder. You know, you hear people say, well, if my friends are going to hell, then I want to go too. Like, no, it's not a party. Like, the darkness and death aspect of eternity is complete and utter isolation. So they felt the darkness, and that is not a place. And apart from God, that's that gut-wrenching sound that we will never be able to fully grasp or understand.
No. So let's move into, because we've been saying this through the whole series, like this leads to Jesus. Like the Passover in Exodus. Then they have the celebration of Passover through time that Leviticus talks about, continuing the sacrificial lambs for the atonement of your sins. But like you said, it was so beautiful. It wasn't supposed to be like that forever.
Right. It was not the permanent system.
No, it wasn't.
Was always leading to Jesus. This is why we need the Old Testament.
And is the God the same as then? Now and forever. Like it is like, so when you said that on Sunday, like, hey, people think the God of the Old Testament is different than the God of the New Testament. I can see what they're saying.
Oh,
right?
Me too.
There is a massive argument for that. And there's books written about it. But when you start actually asking the Spirit, okay, give me the true thread of God's character and his ways, you start to see truly that he is compassionate. He gives opportunities left, right, and center.
Let me read for you. I couldn't fit it into the talk because I had to keep this talk somewhat shorter because of communion.
The podcast is for.
Exodus 34. 6, the Lord passed before him and proclaimed, the Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness, keeping steadfast love for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgressions and sin, but who will be by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers of the children, and the children's children in the third and fourth generations. So, right in the Exodus book itself, in the Exodus story, the description
is it rich in mercy, it says?
Yeah. Slow to anger. abounding steadfast love and faithfulness, keeping steadfast love for thousands, forgiving iniquity. Like that, a God merciful and gracious. Like,
yeah, it's the same language as the New Testament.
Same language as the New Testament.
Yeah.
But we get fixated on a story like this. Like, why would God kill the firstborn? Well, we see the bookend of the plagues and going back to what Pharaoh had done, and God saying, don't think you can get away with this.
Yeah.
I have seen what you have done, and here are the consequences. And the reality of each of the 10 plagues is an attack on Egyptian gods, small g.
Yeah.
Right. And so even the darkness is the Egyptian god of Ra, the light,
the boat, the son of like the boat,
solar boat,
the solar boat. Yeah.
Isn't that brilliant?
Yeah. He is the God above any other God.
Yeah. That's the revealing aspect of the story. So if you just read that story on your own, let's say you're not as familiar with the Bible, you're not as familiar with your understanding of God. So someone who's new to this reads the Bible and they read this, they go, wow, I can't follow a God like this.
Yeah.
Especially like we've been talking about for the last 2 weeks, if you hold to, well, God is love, so therefore he's just going to, and your definition of love is what the world says, that you have to agree with me and affirm everything that I'm saying in my own truth. Well, then you don't have a God who's holy.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, that's a whole other thing, but
it's a whole other story.
Yeah.
But let's get to the Jesus part.
Yeah.
Because I had a conversation with someone last night. They had Connect group on Sunday night, and they said, well, this was a heavy conversation.
Really?
Yeah, it's a heavy one, man, because like what we're believing, we say this all the time behind the scenes, that God is removing the veil. Like he is truly placing his eyes and his heart into the people that truly want to follow him, right? So they are understanding the reality that these things are true. These things are real. It's not just a suggestion.
Right.
It's a reality now and for the things to come, right? So what's kind of the encouragement around the Jesus? Like he is the ultimate sacrifice. He went to the cross. We celebrated communion this past weekend. What's the encouragement for us to move forward in?
Yeah. I mean, one of the songs that we sang yesterday was about living hope.
Yeah.
Right.
That's such a good song.
And this is just coming to my mind because I didn't know you were going to ask this question. So I believe that what we need to take from this, the Exodus story that leads us to Jesus, is the comfort of knowing that our living hope in the one whose name is Jesus is the greatest demonstration of his love for us, is that he was willing to come to take on humanity, to set aside his place in glory, to come to this earth. It came down the step ladder that we talked about.
I love that image.
So that we wouldn't have to figure out how to get back to God, that he came to us. And that you can have that living hope, that eternal reality that is in the now but not yet. And that's the redemptive work of God, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like I love the first question God asks Adam and Eve after they sin. He comes walking through the garden. Where are you? Right? That tenderness. He didn't say, what have you done? Look at you, blew it. You messed everything up. What were you thinking? No, he just says, where are you? Because he wanted them to step forward from hiding in the shame.
And he's moved with compassion.
Yeah.
Right? You look at all the miracles that Jesus did. Many of them were described that he was moved to compassion.
Yeah.
Which is just like, it shows the tender, slow, rich heart of God.
Yeah, because he wants to lift that burden.
So he took the burden upon himself.
Yeah.
Like, that's what's crazy.
Yeah.
And
on the cross.
Yeah. When Jesus says it is finished, it is finished.
Yeah. Which we're actually going to use for, I think, our Easter theme 2025.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
I mean, I ended the talk online and like in video and in Poplar Hill just saying, Why not choose Jesus?
Yeah.
Right? Why not? If I had the solution to cancer,
VPC, you'd be waving the banner.
VPC has solved the cancer issue.
Mm-hmm.
And we're holding it out. And the cancer, sin is the cancer that has ruined our souls. And Jesus says, I have come to be your life. I have come to lift that burden, to set you free. We're finally making our way out of Egypt next Sunday, or this coming weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to do the Red Sea crossing. Finally out of Egypt, right? And
this is one of my favorite stories.
Yeah?
Oh, man. Yeah. There's something so powerful with Moses and his staff. And, it's such a powerful story. The baptism of God's people. It's so cool. Man, oh, man. Okay. I think this is a good way to end it. Oh, it's probably a good way to end it now. You're all funny now. Your mic's all weird. Your camera's all weird, but we're just going to leave it. Just want to say thanks to everyone who listens to the podcast, that continues to faithfully tune in, shares it with a friend, and also for the Connect groups that continue to plow through a deep story, a profound story, and just be continuing to think about what the next steps are for you to continue to trust Jesus, lean into him. And we've also got Christmas coming up. Man, oh man, Christmas is coming, and our encouragement to you is to start thinking and praying about maybe 3 people in your life that are not connected to a church yet, that could join you at Christmas this year at Vitalpoint at one of our 4 locations. How many services do we have? It feels like we got 25 services. I think it's only 9 or something like that. But it's just so powerful. All the tickets are live on our website if you want to go snag those for you and your friend. And thanks so much for being here, and have an incredible day.